On a sweltering summer day in June 2001, a mother in Houston, Texas, made a frantic 911 call. On the other end of the line, the operator heard a woman's flat voice say, "I just killed my kids." That woman was Andrea Yates. When police arrived, they discovered a scene of unimaginable tragedy. Her 5 children, ranging from 7 years old to just 6 months, were gone. This story shocked the nation and sparked a massive debate. How could a mother do this? Was she a monster, or was she a victim herself? To understand this tragedy, we need to look closer at Andrea's life. Andrea was a devoted mother and a registered nurse. By all outward appearances, she and her husband Rusty were building a family rooted in strong religious beliefs. They lived in a converted bus for a time, homeschooling their growing family. But beneath the surface, Andrea was struggling. She had been battling severe postpartum depression and psychosis for years. Her mental health struggles weren't a secret. She had been hospitalized multiple times. In 1999, after the birth of her 4th son, she attempted suicide. Doctors warned the couple not to have any more children, telling them it could trigger another psychotic episode. Despite this clear medical advice, they went on to have their 5th child, a daughter named Mary. Andrea's condition spiraled downward after Mary's birth. Her delusions intensified. She was convinced she was a bad mother and that her children were not developing correctly. She believed they were doomed to eternal damnation and that by taking their lives, she was saving them from a worse fate. It's a line of thinking that is completely alien to a healthy mind. But for someone in the grips of severe psychosis, it was a terrifying reality. Her husband, Rusty, later faced criticism for what many saw as a lack of understanding of the severity of his wife's illness. He admitted he didn't fully grasp what postpartum psychosis meant. He was the primary breadwinner, often away at work, leaving Andrea alone to care for 5 young children while her mental state deteriorated. The family's religious advisor also reportedly encouraged them to have as many children as possible, adding another layer of pressure. Andrea's case went to trial, and it was a media firestorm. The prosecution painted her as a cold-blooded killer. Her defense argued she was not guilty by reason of insanity. A key point of contention was her ability to know right from wrong. She knew killing was wrong in the eyes of the law. She called 911 after all. But in her delusional state, she believed she was doing the right thing for her children's souls. In her first trial in 2002, the jury found her guilty of capital murder. They rejected the insanity defense, and she was sentenced to life in prison. The verdict was controversial. Many people, especially those in the medical community, felt the legal system had failed to understand the power of postpartum psychosis. But the story didn't end there. It was later discovered that a key prosecution witness, a forensic psychiatrist, had given false testimony. He claimed he had consulted on a TV show episode that mirrored Andrea's case, suggesting she might have gotten the idea from television. This turned out to be untrue. Because of this false testimony, her conviction was overturned in 2005. A second trial was held in 2006. This time, the outcome was different. The defense was better able to educate the jury about the devastating effects of severe postpartum psychosis. They brought in top experts who explained how the illness completely distorts a person's reality. This time, the jury found Andrea Yates not guilty by reason of insanity. Instead of prison, she was committed to a high-security state mental hospital, where she remains today. She receives ongoing psychiatric treatment. Reports from the hospital describe her as a quiet model patient who grieves for her children every single day. She watches home videos of them and has reportedly said she'd give her life to have them back. The Andrea Yates case had a profound impact. It forced a national conversation about maternal mental health. Before this tragedy, postpartum depression and psychosis were often whispered about, if they were discussed at all. Andrea's story, as horrific as it is, helped shed light on these conditions. It led to changes in the law in some states, making it easier to use postpartum mental illness as a defense. It also spurred the passage of the Andrea Yates bill in Texas, which requires medical professionals to provide new mothers with information about the signs and dangers of postpartum depression. Today, there is much more awareness. We understand that postpartum depression is not just the baby blues. It's a serious medical condition that in rare and extreme cases can lead to psychosis. It's an illness, not a character flaw. Andrea's story is a tragic reminder of what can happen when mental illness goes untreated or is not taken seriously enough. It's a story of a system that failed, a family that was destroyed, and a mother lost in a reality that no one else could see. It highlights the critical importance of support for new mothers and accessible mental health care. If you or someone you know is struggling after childbirth, please know you are not alone and help is available. Talk to a doctor, a therapist, or a trusted friend. Organizations like Postpartum Support International offer free resources and can connect you with help in your area. Reaching out is a sign of strength, and it can make all the difference. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please consider sharing it to help raise awareness. Follow our channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. In the quiet town of Amityville, New York, stood a grand Dutch colonial house at 112 Ocean Avenue. For the DeFeo family, it was supposed to be their dream home. But on November 13th, 1974, that dream turned into a horrifying nightmare. This is the story of Ronald DeFeo Jr., the man at the center of the events that would inspire the infamous Amityville Horror. Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. was the eldest of 5 children. His father, Ronald DeFeo Sr., was a successful car salesman, but behind closed doors, the family dynamic was far from perfect. Friends and neighbors later described a turbulent household. Butch often clashed with his father, who was known for his authoritarian and volatile temper. This constant conflict created a tense and unhappy environment. Butch was often described as a troubled young man, struggling with his own issues and feeling immense pressure within the family structure. He used drugs, dropped out of school, and had a series of low-paying jobs, including a position at his father's dealership. The relationship between father and son was reportedly so strained that it often led to heated, sometimes physical, confrontations. This constant friction was a powder keg waiting for a spark. In the early morning hours of November 13, 1974, that spark finally ignited. Butch DeFeo, then 23 years old, took a high-powered rifle and systematically moved through the house. He shot and killed his entire family as they slept in their beds. His father, Ronald Sr., his mother, Louise, and his 4 younger siblings, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew. The crime was shocking in its brutality and its seeming lack of motive. The victims were all found face down in their beds, with no signs of a struggle. This detail would later become a focal point of mystery and speculation. How could 6 people be shot in the same house without anyone waking up or attempting to flee? After committing the murders, Butch went about his day. He went to work at the car dealership, tried to establish an alibi by claiming he couldn't reach his family by phone, and later went to a local bar, crying out that he thought his family had been hurt. He convinced a group of friends to go back to the house with him, where they discovered the gruesome scene. When the police arrived, Butch's story began to fall apart. Initially, he tried to pin the blame on a mob hitman, but his inconsistencies and the lack of evidence to support his claims quickly made him the prime suspect. After intense interrogation, he confessed. Butch's confession, however, was just the beginning of a long and convoluted legal battle filled with changing stories. His defense team argued for an insanity plea. Butch claimed that he heard voices in the house, voices that commanded him to kill his family. He said these voices belonged to dark, demonic presences that had taken hold of the house and of him. This was the first time the idea of a supernatural influence at 112 Ocean Avenue was introduced. The defense argued that Butch was not in control of his actions, that he was a victim of a powerful, malevolent force. Was it a desperate attempt to avoid a life sentence, or was there something more to his claims? The prosecution painted a very different picture. They portrayed Butch as a cold, calculating killer, motivated by greed. They argued that he wanted to collect his parents' life insurance money, which amounted to a significant sum. They presented evidence of his drug use and his volatile personality, suggesting he was fully capable of committing such a heinous act out of anger and a desire for financial freedom. The jury had to decide, was Butch DeFeo Jr. a madman controlled by demons, or a greedy son who murdered his family in cold blood? The trial was a media sensation. The story of the voices and the possibility of demonic possession captivated the public. Ultimately, the jury sided with the prosecution. They didn't buy the insanity defense. On November 21, 1975, almost a year to the day after the murders, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was found guilty on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 consecutive sentences of 25 years to life, ensuring he would spend the rest of his days behind bars. But the story of 112 Ocean Avenue was far from over. Just 1 year after the trial, a new family, the Lutz family, moved into the house. They lasted only 28 days before fleeing in terror, claiming to have been tormented by paranormal phenomena. Their story became the basis for the best-selling book, The Amityville Horror, which was later adapted into a blockbuster film. The book and movie propelled the house into international infamy. The Lutz's alleged experiences, the disembodied voices, the swarms of flies, the green slime oozing from the walls seemed to corroborate Butch's claims of a demonic presence. The Amityville house was no longer just the site of a tragic family murder. It was now widely considered one of the most haunted houses in America. Over the years, Ronald DeFeo Jr. continued to change his story from his prison cell. At one point, he claimed his sister Dawn was involved. He alleged that Dawn had killed their father, and then their mother killed Dawn and the other children in a fit of rage, forcing him to kill his mother in self-defense. In another version, he claimed he only killed his parents and Dawn, and that someone else killed the younger siblings. He even implicated his mother at one point. These conflicting accounts only added more layers of confusion and mystery to the case. Did he act alone? Was someone else involved? Or were these the desperate ramblings of a man trying to shift blame and rewrite his own dark history? Each new story was eagerly picked up by paranormal investigators and authors, fueling decades of debate and speculation. The case became a tangled web of fact, fiction, and ever-changing testimonies. Many paranormal investigators and researchers have tried to get to the bottom of the Amityville mystery. Some believe the land itself is cursed, citing tales that the Shinnecock Indian tribe once used the area as a place to house the sick and insane, and that a man who practiced dark arts once lived on the property. Others have meticulously debunked the Lutz's claims, pointing to inconsistencies in their story and suggesting they fabricated the haunting for financial gain. They argue that the so-called paranormal events can all be explained by logical, natural causes, combined with the psychological stress of living in a house with such a dark past. The debate rages on to this day. Was 112 Ocean Avenue truly a portal to the underworld, or was it simply a house where a terrible human tragedy occurred? Ronald DeFeo Jr. remained in prison for the rest of his life, becoming a figure of morbid fascination. He was denied parole at every hearing. He passed away in March 2021 at the age of 69, taking any definitive truths about that night to his grave. His death closed a chapter in the Amityville saga, but it didn't provide any final answers. The questions remain. What really happened inside 112 Ocean Avenue on that fateful November night? Was Butch DeFeo a cold-blooded killer, a man driven mad by unseen forces, or something in between? The Amityville Horror story is a complex mix of true crime, paranormal lore, and media sensationalism. It serves as a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist, not just in old, creaky houses, but within the human heart itself. The murders were a real and devastating tragedy, and regardless of what you believe about the hauntings, the 6 lives lost that night should never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. What do you believe really happened? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story compelling, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into fascinating and mysterious cases. See you next time. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're re-diving into a case that is as heartbreaking as it is baffling. The story of Josh Powell and the disappearance of his wife, Susan Cox Powell. This is a tough one, so let's get right into it. It all began on a cold December night in 2009 in West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell, a 28-year-old mother of 2 young boys, Charlie and Braden, seemingly vanished without a trace. The next morning, when Susan didn't show up for work and the boys weren't at daycare, friends and family grew worried. When police arrived at the Powell home, they found it empty. Josh Powell, Susan's husband, eventually turned up later that day with their 2 sons. His story was strange from the start. He claimed he had spontaneously decided to take his boys, aged 4 and 2, on a late-night camping trip in the freezing Utah desert. He said he left around midnight, leaving Susan at home. He had no explanation for her whereabouts. Police were immediately suspicious. A midnight camping trip in sub-freezing temperatures with 2 toddlers? It just didn't add up. Investigators began a massive search for Susan, scouring the vast Utah landscape, but found nothing. The focus quickly shifted to Josh. His behavior became increasingly erratic and uncooperative. He lawyered up, stopped talking to Susan's family, and seemed more concerned with clearing his own name than with finding his missing wife. As the investigation deepened, a disturbing picture of the Powell marriage began to emerge. Friends and family described Josh as controlling and emotionally manipulative. Susan had documented his behavior in journals and even left a secret will, stating that if she died, it might not be an accident. The evidence against Josh was circumstantial but daunting. For example, a large amount of Susan's life insurance had recently been taken out, and investigators found traces of Susan's blood on the living room sofa, though not enough to prove a violent crime had occurred. Despite the intense suspicion, police didn't have enough evidence to arrest Josh for Susan's disappearance. The case grew cold. In a shocking move, Josh packed up his sons and moved to Washington to live with his father, Stephen Powell. This is where the story takes an even darker turn. Stephen Powell was also a deeply disturbing individual. He had an obsessive, inappropriate fixation on Susan, hoarding thousands of photos and videos of her, some taken without her knowledge. He was eventually arrested and convicted on unrelated charges, further tainting the Powell family name. Josh lost custody of his sons, Charlie and Braden, who were placed in the care of Susan's parents, Chuck and Judy Cox. Josh was allowed supervised visits. On February 5, 2012, during one of these visits, the unthinkable happened. Josh locked the social worker out of his rented home, grabbed his 2 little boys, and in a final, horrific act, set the house on fire, ending his own life and the lives of his innocent children. In the aftermath of this tragedy, a note was found that seemed to confirm Josh's guilt. But the ultimate question remained: what happened to Susan? To this day, Susan Cox Powell's body has never been found. Josh Powell took that secret to his grave. The case remains officially open, a painful, unresolved mystery for her loved ones, who still hope for answers and a proper resting place for Susan. This case is a somber reminder of the hidden darkness that can exist behind closed doors and the devastating impact of domestic abuse. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, please know that there are resources available to help. We'll link some in the description below. Thank you for watching and for joining us to remember Susan. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more stories like this. See you next time.